Ow. Alright guys, for today's video, I've got a whiteboard. And I put a towel down on the Z to make sure we don't scratch the paint. We wouldn't want to do that. Anyways, today's video is, what is the deal with relays? Relays, what is a relay exactly? And first of all, I should apologize. It got warm for like 3 days and the trees decided they want to jizz all over the place. So it's kind of kicking my ass right now. But I'll power through this. Anyways, what is a relay? A relay, I'll throw one on the screen. It's essentially, the easiest way to think about it, is a switch, just like a light switch, okay? On a in your house, the way it is, it has power going to it and the ground going to it, and at one point in time, depending on what it is, it would be akin to you walking by and flipping the switch on, and it sends then the power to what the light bulb or whatever accessory would be. Okay, so inside the relay, you have a kind of piece of metal where wire comes in and it coils and 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 coils. And what this does, if you know anything about electromagnetism or anything from school, of course there's a reflection or shining bright light right there. This, when you have wire that circles around a piece of metal and power goes through it or whatever, it makes an electromagnet, okay? Power goes through here, it makes a magnet. The magnet can then be used to attach or to attract metal. The more power goes through, there we go, or the more coils you have going around it, is the way you can increase the amount, the strength of the magnet, or the more power you can send through wires is another way to increase the power of the magnet. These are relays and cars use very small wires that go around here, so there's lots and lots and lots of coils inside there. Okay, so a relay in and of itself, for the most part, are square. Older school ones are kind of square. New ones, they can be rectangular or whatever. I mean, there's a whole bunch of different styles of relays, but they all work kind of the exact way. And we're going to talk right now about a 4-prong relay. Oh, there's one here, one here, one here, and one here. Okay, so depending on how it is, there's 4 different terminals on this relay. You have your 30 terminal down here. This way is labeled 30. You have your 87 terminal up here. Then you have your 86 and your 85. Okay, 30 is always your positive power coming into it from the battery, fuse block area, whatever. 87 is always your power going out to your accessory. Okay, 85 and 86, depending on what the setup is, they are kind of interchangeable. One will be either your switched power coming in, be a positive power coming in and then going out to ground. Okay, imagine a ground symbol. All right, or you can have a switched ground that then comes in and goes over here to then the output signal goes there. In between 86 and 85 is where you have your electromagnet right there. Okay, inside that relay, if we're looking at it this way, we have, and I don't have one, I tried to find one here to show you the actual wiring diagram on top so you can understand it, but essentially you would have a piece of metal inside here, kind of like this, that is disconnected right now, and then when the switch power comes on, either by like ignition style or a ground switch from like a coolant sensor, it ignites, or it sends this power coming in through the relay, or I'm sorry, through the electromagnet, which energizes it, which then causes the switch, the ferrous metal here, that would be the contact, to be swing over and hit the output of it, and then that sends the power through. Okay, so now let's, if that makes sense, I'm erasing it. I hope you kind of got that in a minute. So now let's think about it for a minute really quick as to why we would do this. Okay, so let's use your cooling fans in your car, for an example. Then you got your battery here, okay? You got positive and negative. All right, so when cars first happened, God, this glare here. When cars first happened, you would have, well, they're on 6-volt systems, 12-volt systems, or whatever. It doesn't matter. You would have very little accessories that would all kind of draw straight off of, for the most part, kind of off the battery. So you'd have a positive that would come out and run to just a standard switch. Have the off and then on here. Okay, run into there. And then that would run to the accessory. Then obviously you'd have your negative go to the ground. Okay. So what would happen is you would just flip the switch inside your car. Imagine like turn on your headlights or something like that, or you need to turn on a fan and it's a manual fan switch. You flick it on, and it would let the power go from the battery to the switch, and then you have the alternator or generator, whatever it was at the time, spinning to then recharge the battery. Okay. The issue with this is the length and gauge of wire that you need. Okay. The further you get away from the power source, the more voltage loss you have across the wire. Okay. I don't remember what the exact formula is right now, but the longer the wire, the more power you lose. Okay. Also, the longer the wire, the more heat you can generate. Okay. So in order to offset the loss of voltage through a really long run like this, you have to run much thicker wire. So wire gauges go, you know, the higher the number, the smaller diameter of the wire. Okay, so as opposed to run like a 20 something gauge wire, you'd have to run like a 10 or an 8 just to get the same amount of power at the battery to your accessory. So now if your battery's running at like 12.5 volts or whatever, and your accessory over here, it could be running down, it could not even be getting a full 12 volts. But the fan motor needs a full 12 volts. So if it's only getting hit with slightly lower voltage than what it needs, it's going to start getting really hot really fast, and that will kill your motor altogether. So the way you would get around that is you'd have to have really thick wires running to that. Okay, that's the way it always used to be. So to get around doing this, relays were created. So the beauty about a relay is, if I have my fan here or whatever accessory you want to be, and your battery here, okay, plus minus, and then you would still have a switch over here, off, on, okay. So in the middle of this area right here, you'd have your relay that would be installed. So you'd have your 30 here, your 87, then your 86 and 85. Okay. So depending on where this is, let's go with this, since I just drew it earlier. That's still being the ground, and this will be your switched in. So here, what you would have is, generally for the most part, relays are kind of mounted closer to the accessories than farther away. So what you'd have is you'd have your thicker gauge wire coming out here, nice short run right to the relay itself. You have it grounded here, chassis ground. This is also normally chassis ground. You wouldn't really run it back to the battery, but everything, the batteries, the chassis, the head, all that stuff, they all kind of continue ground to each other in the same. Okay, then at 87 you have running here to your power, or the power coming out of here with another thicker power wire going to the fan. Okay, so now this would give the on-off switch to where, as opposed to running all the power from all the way here through the switch all the way back, this switch can now be very, very, very low voltage switch. It doesn't have to handle all the juice coming from the battery through it to powder accessory, because that is all handled by the electromagnet inside the relay. So here, out of here, you would have your switched power on off, just running here, small little wire to engage the relay to then send the power to the thing. Okay. The beauty about this is Your runs of thick wire are much shorter. Your voltage loss is virtually nothing, and you don't have to worry about too much heat buildup at all. Now, going into the power here from the positive side, you would have a fuse. Okay, you put a fuse right here. Most of the time now, if you think about a car, people say fuse, I'll imagine just like a fuse on the line. But really, what it is you have your battery coming right here, your positive going in here into the fuse block, and then you have fuse, fuse, fuse. You have tons of fuses. So every individual fuse is, you have one feed kind of coming in here, and then this feed is broken up between all the different circuits that go through the car. All right, and then you can sometimes, most of the time now on newer cars, you have your also relays attached, most of them inside the fuse blocks, because the fuse box is relatively close to wherever the accessories are. Sometimes you'll have farther things away, like you may have your fuel pump relay is probably going to be back by the fuel pump in the tank and not up in the front. It all depends on what it is. But that would be where your fuses come in. And usually if you look inside of a fuse box, you also have a bunch of kind of open empty spots here where you can add fuses in. You'll have power going to it, but since there's no complete circuit here, nothing runs through it, and then you would just add a fuse in there and then wire to pick it up to add to your relay if you have an external relay or whatever like that. Okay, so that is the benefit of having a relay as opposed to the switch. And also too, here is you have accessories here like fans, 25 to 30 amp draw. And mostly when it kicks on, if you have like a dual fan setup, you probably want to have dual relays or a staggered switch on. Because if you have two 25 amp fans hitting at one time, that's 50 total amps attacking a 12 volt system through a relay. That's a pretty big hit on a car, but because the relay has electromagnet in it and it ups the voltage through the magnet to be able to control it, it can kind of handle that stuff, but you still want to do what it works out best for your situation. There's charts out there you can look up to see what size wire you would need and amperage draw and all that stuff you need to do. I just lost my train of thought. But yeah, so you add a relay to avoid having to do all this sort of stuff here. Now, that's a standard 4-pole relay. So now, if we imagine the same setup as this one here, but in this relay, they're all nice and big here. This relay, you have your 30 come in here, your 87, 86, 85, 30, 86, 85, and this one be 87. There can also be another contact right here, which would be 87A. Okay, so this is pretty much the exact same thing as the 4-pole relay, except there's an extra terminal in here, and all this is really is that you still have your power that comes in, you still have your ground, you still have your switch, you still have your power that goes out, but this will also be a power out, okay, to whatever. But when you turn on whatever your normal switch is, and we can imagine this for headlights, whatever your normal switch is, if you have your headlight switch in your car, and you take that and you turn that on to headlights, right? Low beams, okay? When you turn that on, the power, I think this would be normally closed, and I think this one's normally open. They could be backwards, doesn't matter. The point being is that when you first turn the switch on, it's connected here, and the voltage is running out here and going to your headlights, but it's going to your, what's the low beam symbol? Low beams, okay? It's going to your low beams. God damn it. Right, okay? Now, on your switch, again, all the power is run to your lights, because usually your lights nowadays they're in the same thing as the one bulb that has different brightnesses to it. You then rotate your interior switch over to your high beams. Okay? So when you do that, it takes and the relay activates and it disconnects from there, and it pulls it down over to this contact. And now the voltage isn't or the signal isn't going out to your low beams, it's now going out to your high beams, okay? So that's generally when a 5-pole switch is going. It's when it's kind of like a dual action control for headlights, or maybe for like power window motors in your car. You have an up and a down. So one, you activate it and in one direction it connects, you activate in another direction it connects and sends power to reverse the motor going up or down to that. That's generally when a 5-pole switch is used. 5-pole relay, I should say, sorry. Now, this is kind of there's a whole bunch of different style relays out there. This is kind of the more basic of the ones they do. I mean, they also have relays now where they're like kind of little small things, and you'll see like a plug here, and then plug, and they'll be named use like 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 and stuff like that, or whatever the numbering ends up being. This right here is no different than this 5-pole relay. It's just a smaller one in a different location, and there are charts that will compare like what these are. So like number 1 would be the number 30 here. I think the number 5 is the is one of the other ones. I'm not sure. Don't quote me on that. But these relays work the same as these relays. It's just they're smaller to fit in areas, and there's comparison charts to compare what wires go here as they do to here. Same sort of deal. They also have different like diode controlled relays and all that sort of stuff. But these will be the most typical ones you'll encounter. And you always want to use relays for pretty much anything that has like a big amperage draw kick in your car. I mean, even like you want relays for if you're one of those idiots that drives around their car rattling itself apart from your stupid ass sound system. You put on aftermarket fans, you want that. Oh, that was another thing. I wanted to mention earlier that when I lost my train of thought. So imagine you have your relay here, 30, 87, 86, 85. And so you have a switch come in. Well, say it's for something like it's your cooling fans. Your cooling fans, unless you're running a manual fan switch in your car, which you can, you probably want that on a different circuit or whatever, but usually your trying to draw and talk at the same time is a little confusing. Usually your fans are going to be run by their own switch that is going to be a sensor that is threaded into the head, into one of the coolant jackets, or maybe in the intake, depending on wherever you have it in your car, depending on what type of car it is. And usually those are ground switches. So that would actually kind of be sitting here. It's a ground switch. It runs in. So it would be sending a signal this way. And once the resistance gets high enough in this in the sensor, it will trigger the signal to come through here to then connect the switch to then run out to turn the fans on. So that's what I was wanting to say earlier. That's why I say these are kind of interchangeable. It depends on which, just whatever the setup is. And then every relay itself will have its own amperage rating, safety rating. So like if you have a 25 amp draw accessory, you would have a 25 amp fuse kind of down here, 25 amp here. And then usually the relay itself as well will also be a 25 amp, or it could be a 30 amp. It comes down to it's kind of another safety thing in here. If relay fails, you have a fuse here that can save it from drawing too much power over there, and it'll pop the fuse and shut down whatever that system is. But it's another form of not safety is not the exact word. Well, it can be safety if you're talking about hot and stuff catching on fire. Redundancy, I guess you could say. So you have an amperage limit on this, you have an amperage limit on your fuse, you have an amperage draw on your accessory, and they all work together to make sure that if one of these two fail, the other thing will pick up the slack and stay operational. Unless this one fails here, then you got no power going to relay anyways. But I think you get what I'm saying here. All stuffed up here. Anyways, yeah, so that's how a relay does it, in a very convoluted back-asswards way of explaining it. But the easiest way to think of it is nothing more than a switch It's just like a light switch in your house, and instead of the light switch being turned on by you, that light switch is now like a motion sensor that is turning it on itself. So that's what these other sensors are, and the whatever it is sending the signal to the relay. That's the best. If that's the best way to maybe help you understand it from home stuff to inside a car. So it's very long-winded and babbling. Do your best to understand what I said. And yeah, feel free. If you think I messed anything up, go ahead. Let me know. And like, comment, subscribe, and all that stuff. And thanks for watching.